r/AskReddit. Serious, people who used to do burglary for a living. What's the scariest thing you've seen in someone's house? Not really burglary, but unlawful entry simply because I could. Decided to try my luck on an older house after I noticed they went on vacation. There was a room hidden behind furniture that I managed to get to but not into because the door wouldn't open fully without completely moving the furniture. The smell inside was unholy, like death and bleach. Sent an anonymous tip to the police. Turned out they basically were luring people's pets in and dissecting them live. Edit. To those curious. I used to do this as kind of a form of joyriding except in houses. Break in, walk around, leave everything more or less untouched. Not the best thing to do as an early teens kid, but when you have a friend's dad who thought it smart enough to teach kids how to pick locks, you kinda feel you need to use it. Serial killers sometimes start off small with animals. Doesn't mean they would have killed people, but there's a chance you saved a human life or two there. I mean, there could be another explanation, but some people are just ducked up. They were known in the neighborhood as being a little weird, but this kind of just cemented everyone's fear of weirder people. Mid-30s tech guy who rarely ever left home. I thought I was gonna find some hacker's cave. I guess I was right in the wrong way. Too long didn't read, broke into a building. Experienced scary shit. The university I went to was a very old campus built around 1850. It started as an old women's college with one building and grew over the 150 plus years to include a few other more modern buildings. The central old building was always empty and constantly under construction, but it seemed like progress was very slow. It was strictly off limits with threats of being expelled to any students caught within. I broke in 3-4 times with friend. The first time we did some wrecking. The building was a squared U shape with a fenced-in courtyard where the school kept landscaping equipment. It was snowing quite hard, dampening the sound nicely, and it was around 1 AM. We hopped the fence and looked for access. Everything was locked and we didn't want to break anything yet to get in. Took some pictures and noted the rooms we would try to break in through. My friend went to hop back over the fence, lost his balance and checked his balls while I attempted to spot him. At that moment I heard a young girl chuckle standing next to me, clear as day. I looked over my shoulder to see nothing but heard another giggle. I jumped over the fence and sprinted back to my dorm. The second time we actually accessed the building, broke a window to unlock and crawled in the basement. Found a large 3-story spiral staircase that was beautiful and began to climb to the top. We could hear the eerie sound of what reminded me of a record skipping over and over mixed with chanting. But we got to the top and found a taped plastic divider blocking the wall, presumably for dust or asbestos. The sound was pretty loud at this point. Seemed to be coming from the opposite end of the building, maybe 50 yards away. Friend sticks a knife through the plastic to crawl through. Everything goes silent. We continue and find a room full of several hundred dead pigeons. Decided to leave. Last time we broke in we took 2 more friends with us. Again make it to the top of the staircase but decided to explore the rooms at the top. Found a very large room with high ceilings, a huge fireplace with beautiful mantel, overlooking the campus. I see campus security in their patrol vehicle about a block away, but I don't think he sees us. Suddenly we hear the sound of footsteps coming up the staircase. We freeze and line up against the wall closest to the entry to the room. The steps clearly come to within feet of the entry and stop. My heart is pounding. I'm thinking it's security and we're effed. I'm closest to the entry and the guy behind me is poking me to look. I lean forward and around the door frame into the hall to see nothing waiting for us. When I was 14 I broke into a neighbor's house and looked around. Found a big stash of Polaroids of some of my friends naked. Most were younger than me. I stayed quiet for about 2 weeks just trying to figure it out. Then I broke back in and took a couple of pictures of my best friends and asked them about it. Neither of them had a clue how they were taken and couldn't ever remember ever being over at the couple's house. One of my friends told his older sister, who then went and confronted the wife. She said she didn't know anything about it either, but when he came home that evening, all hell broke loose. She had her bags packed and was gone that night. The next day the guy stopped on his way to work and threatened us for messing up his marriage. His house burned down a couple of days later while he was at work. We never ever spoke of it again. The next day the guy stopped on his way to work and threatened us for messing up his marriage. You'd think that if you're caught red-handed with child porn, you wouldn't try to pin the blame for your marriage failing on someone else. So, not sure if this applies because it wasn't burglary but definitely trespassing on private property and probably breaking and entering too. I was around 16 at the time and went to my grandma's house to hang out with some friends who lived nearby for the weekend and take care of her dog while she was out of town. I showed up at around 4 o'clock and it was around 4:30 PM when my friends showed up on their bikes. We started out riding down the dirt country roads for a few hours and got hot, so we decided to ride back to town to buy something to drink. As we were riding we passed this huge dilapidated farmhouse. For some reason I had to stop and stare at it. I asked my friends if they wanted to explore it and the barn behind it after we got our pops and Arizona teas, and they agreed because they had never went in before either. An hour or so later we had got our refreshments, went back to my grandma's and got a backpack for the flashlights and my small bolt action .22 rifle in case of animals like coyotes and any other predators that may be living inside by now. We entered the house through a shattered basement window and all three immediately turned our flashlights on to cut through the pitch dark. It smelled like any 100-plus-year-old basement would smell like, I guess. And the house was definitely spooky but nothing out of the ordinary. Our other friend showed up, so we exited the house. At this point it was getting dark, but we didn't care because we had a rifle, flashlights and an extra person. We also weren't too worried about the predatory animals at this point because there seemed to be no sign of any. We were also close to finishing a half gallon of peppermint schnapps between the four of us in the 45 minutes my third friend had been there. We kept swigging the bottle and talking amongst ourselves as we walked towards the big red 4-floor barn. It was huge, so we couldn't tell how far it actually was, and by time we actually got to it the bottle was gone. The sun had fully set and we had quit talking and just were silently walking with our flashlights, wanting to get there so we could stop walking and smoke the weed we all had brought with us. As we got within about 100 feet or so we see a light coming from a small round window at the top of the barn. 50 feet we notice an awful smell that I cannot describe with words. We kept walking. 25 feet. We hear loud rustling and smacking sounds from inside the barn and the light was visible through the small hole in the wall on the right side of the barn shining into a bush, and we were dead silent. We crept to the hole behind the bush. I wish I wouldn't have looked in because I'm still not 1000% sure what I saw. There was blood, lots of it, covering every inch of the dirt floor and splattered like paint on everything I could see. And many clumps of what I could only imagine was some type of flesh. It took about 2 minutes for all of us to collectively process what was happening and all start running back towards our bikes at the house. The 25-30 minute walk was sprinted in what seemed like 30 seconds. I was third in line and never looked back once. My friend in front of me did, and the look of horror on his face in my flashlight assures me to this day that I'm happy I didn't. My friend behind me also looked over his shoulder while running. We got back to my grandma's house in record time, all drunk as sunk still, shaking, and out of breath. As soon as we got through the breezeway door and locked it and the one on the opposite side of the breezeway, we all simultaneously slumped up against the wall and sat down trying to calm ourselves and each other and talk it out. I asked my friend who was in front of me and the friend who was behind me on the mad dash back to the bikes what they saw when they looked back. They both gave basically the same description of multiple black outlines chasing us through the almost pitch dark night. Needless to say, we smoked all of the pot and still couldn't get any sleep until the sun came up. Edit. Thank you all so much for the comments and upvotes, my friends. This is my first post, so if anything needs to be cleared up just let me know. Also thank you so very much for the silver. Edit 2. Spacing. And another thank you to everyone who's upvoted and does upvote this in the future. You're all so wonderful. I found a laptop that had a lot of child porn on it. Needless to say, I turned in the laptop and had to do community service, but the other guy got 6 years, so I am happy. You got in trouble for turning it in? I'm assuming he got in trouble because he obtained the laptop full of child porn by breaking into someone's house. They probably went easy on him and only gave community service since he sacrificed himself to turn in the laptop. I saw pictures of people around the neighborhood, even myself. I was rattled to the core. I stopped that night, but I still kind of watch my back whenever I see that guy in town. I feel like he knows exactly what I know. I feel like this one is the creepiest one here, because it's also the most realistic to happen. Not really burglary, but it was someone that got caught. I bought a few old, 100-year-old, houses in a shitty neighborhood to rent. Bought a house and found a bunch of used condoms below a settee. I gave them to the police for whatever reason. They run the DNA. Turns out, the previous owner was wanted for robbery and rape. He got caught because he left a forwarding address. Holy shit, was it a gut feeling that made you turn them in, or do you have literally no clue why you did? We used to break into abandoned factory buildings in Cleveland all the time. Then once it turned out the building we broke into was not abandoned and the owners chased us out of there. We would have been beat up or arrested. Probably not the legit owners but squatters. Back when my friends and I were stupid teenagers and horribly influenced by gangs, we thought it'd be fun to break into someone's house and an easy way to get money. We broke into this old lady house. We broke into her window and she had a lot of valuable jewelry and found a wallet filled with $100 bills. We all were saying we hit the jackpot, guys. My friends were taking her jewelry and money. I saw that there was a door at the end and had a big sign that said private. Me being stupid, I opened it. My heart dropped. This lady must have been part of a cult or something because she had the star on the floor, candles, posters of people I don't even know with their faces smeared in blood or scratched up, and worse of all, there was a cross with a body and a deer head on top bleeding with its eyes sewed up. I yelled and told them to let's go. Before we left we put everything back, didn't even bother to take her things because Lord knows how she got the jewelry and money. I obviously closed the door and left. That was the only and last time we did that.